welcome back to the lore. Whisper, 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 whisper. Tonight we're going to be doing a lore video about one of my favorite places in the Forgotten Realms. It's a place called 10 Towns. 10 Towns, 10 Towns, 10 Towns. If you're not familiar, the Forgotten Realms is a fantasy world or universe, really, where a lot of games such as Dungeons and Dragons and things of that nature are played. You also have many different famous characters and stories told within that same shared universe. And there's plenty of video games and other things that are made there too, such as Baldur's Gate, things like that, or Neverwinter and Neverwinter Nights. So yeah, it's a really cool, just shared world and universe. And the 10 Towns is one of the main points of community for one of my most favorite fantasy character, Duarden, the Dark Elf Ranger. The Dark Elf trilogy, or rather the Crystal Shard trilogy, Crystal Shard, Streams of Silver, and the Halfling's Gem, they all talk about, well, the first two at least talk about 10 Towns and really kind of dive into that, and then other books later on in the Drizzt series goes into that and explains it more as they revisit the towns and things of that nature. But without giving out any further information, I'll go ahead and just start reading it to you from the wiki, and that way you can get a better feel from it with all the narrative that's already out there about the location. Before I continue, really quick, just want to say thank you all so much for supporting the channel, and I'm very thankful. So, and if you have any other topics like this that you would want me to read about or explore or anything like that, please go ahead and let me know, and that way I can go ahead and do something to give back to you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. The 10 Towns are a loose confederation of frontier villages found in Icewind Dale in the western Frozen Var. The communities of the 10 Towns attract those people of Faerun determined to find a life for themselves and those desperate to leave their former lives behind. While life within each community exemplified diligence and partnership, relations between each of the communities demonstrated the fierce competitive spirit that was needed to survive in the north. So that's like a little overview of 10 Towns, and now it's going to get into the geography. I'll also be sharing some images and things like that as I read through this, that way it can help you guys get a better picture of the location. I love reading stuff like this time of year, where I'm at in Pennsylvania. It is pretty snowy and icy during the winter time, though in more recent years it's gotten a bit more milder for the most part. But just reading about 10 Towns, and I love to read the Crystal Shard every winter, and that is about Drizzt and his companions and things of that nature, and it's just a setting that captures that winter feeling, that desolate tundra feeling. I adore that. I adore reading about that this time of year. So hopefully this will help you guys kind of get in that type of mood too. This is now the geography portion. The Sharngren, I think I'm saying that right. The Sharngarn River extended west from 10 Towns through the Dale's western tundras. The Spine of the World Mountains are located on the town's southern border, and the Ragged Glacier to its east. The eastern waters borders of the Sea of Moving Ice encompass the area north of the 10 Towns. The 10 Towns were formed around the 3 lakes of Icewind Dale. Those are Red Waters, Lake Dinenshire, and Mar Doladun. Situated northwest of Red Waters, the smallest of the lakes, are fittingly enough the smallest villages, Dungans Hall and Good Mead. Pretty cool names. A bit ways north is Loch Dinenshire, upon the shores of which sits the settlements of Easthaven, Denivel, and Kargunik. Some 10 miles or 16 kilometers west is the largest and deepest of the lakes, Mar Doladun, around which are situated the towns of Lonelywood, along with its namesake forest, Bremen, Dermalen, and the walled city of Dargos. Between Lake Dinenshire and Mar Doladun is the massive solitary peak of Kelvin's Cairn. Just south of the mountain is the Dwarven Valley, a deep chasm that houses a number of dwarf clans. It doesn't say it here, but Clan Battlehammer is one of those prominent clans that are housed there as well. Southwest of the valley, nestled between all 3 lakes, is the trading hub of Branshander, the gateway city that leads to the rest of civilization to the south. Now we get into the government section. Official decisions for the towns are made by a council consisting of 1 influential member from each town. These council members meet in the council building in Branshander, which is unanimously recognized as the capital of 10 Towns and of Icewind Dale itself, once a month during the summer season and once every 3 in the winter. Now we're going into the 14th century. Around the time of the Battle of Icewind Dale, the council consisted of the following individuals. Oh, well, we'll skip that for now. I don't think you really care who the council members were at the time. And then it goes on to talk about how they changed going into the 15th century. Here we go. Now we're getting into the trade portion. The fishing and sale of knucklehead trout, along with scrimshaw made from its bones, is the industry that allows the 10 Towns to remain in existence for as many years as they have. Each of the lakeside settlements maintains their own fleet of large fishing ships. Despite some timbering industry in Lonelywood, the 10 Towns has to import much of the wood they use for construction and warmth. And there's not too much history that's been added here, but now we'll get into the inhabitants. The 10 Towns attracted those who were brave enough and hardworking enough to set out for a harsh life they could call their own. Among these were prospectors, miners, fishermen, mercenaries, treasure hunters, and other industrious but sometimes less reputable folks. Fugitives often come to 10 Towns to flee their troubles, only to find a life of hard work ahead of them. Some petty criminals, pirates, and other agents serving malevolent forces settled within the communities. While some dwarves do live within the 10 towns, the majority of them stay within their nearby holds in underground halls. Many of the folks from Kargunik and Bremen trace their ancestry to clans of the Raggedmen, tribesmen that once dwelled within those settlements. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look into some of these towns. I don't think there's going to be much about each one, but we'll find out. So let's start with Dungans Hall. Dungans Hall is the smallest of the 10 towns in Icewind Dale. It comprises a meager grouping of buildings arranged around a pair of piers, one long and one short. It's located on the western shore of Red Waters, southwest of Mead. Its northern edge is marked with a path of gravel. The hamlet of Dungans Hall was founded by Dungan de Brace when he found a great spot to fish on the shore of Red Waters Lake. During the 1360s DR, that's Dale's reckoning, it's that time of year, the spokesman was Freya Greinstead, the widow of the previous spokesman who had died while fishing out on the lake. Freya lived in the house in the middle of town connected to the fish house by a boardwalk. Some 100 years later, around the year of the Iron Dwarf's vengeance, 1485 Dale reckoning, the speaker was the outspoken and gruff trapper Edgar Dormut. Alright, let's take a look at Mead. Mead is one of the smaller of the 10 towns of Icewind Dale. It sits on the northwestern shore of Red Waters, south of the East Way trade road. Geography. 2 roads extend out from Mead, one that goes southwest to Dungans Hall, and another one northeast to East Haven. Trade. While Mead's economy is originally based on the fishing of knucklehead trout from nearby Red Waters Lake, by the mid-14th century DR, they received little profit from their catches. As a whole, the town focused on brewing their famous mead that they sold in the merchant town of Branshander. For many years, Mead and Dungans Hall enjoyed a healthy rivalry with each other. And it has a couple of notable locations. It says there's a Mead Hall, which is a large building in the center of town that serves as the heart of its brewing-based economy, and a Shrine of the Flaming Sword, a worn-down and aged shrine that's run by the young battle guard brother Sharamud during the mid-14th century. Alright, next is East Haven. And this is the geography for the town. The town is located on the southern shore of Loch Denonshire, on the east end of the East Way that leads to Branshander. Originally just a small hamlet, the building of the East Way trade road to Branshander proved to be a boon to the village, which became the fastest growing community in the region, with a fishing fleet rivaling that of Denivel. A breakwater protects most of the piers that reach out into Lake Denonshire. It's pretty neat. Let's see here. Here's the history of it. In 1281 assembled an expedition to Kuladar following the arrival of a messenger. However, the expedition was ambushed by frost giants in Kuladar Pass, and the only survivors to reach Kuladar were the newly arrived group of adventurers. Funny point about that. That's actually, you play that group of adventurers in the game Icewind Dale, which, now that just jogged my memory, I'm totally gonna have to play that for this channel. It's a great Baldur's Gate type of game, like an isometric top-down party control RPG. It came out in like the 90s, but it's a ton of fun, and the soundtrack is amazing, and it really captures the essence of winter. Eckhart Kessel murdered his mentor, Mordecai the Red, in East Haven. That is in Crystal Shard. In 1356 DR, the representative to the council was Glenn Sather. He was a respected and even-tempered councilman, viewing 10 towns as sturdy bulwarks against barbarism. During the Battle of Icewind Dale, Glenn Sather waded into a group of orcs, killing 2. But as he reached Wolfgar, a spear drove into his back and tearing through his chest, killing him. There's a couple notable locations. There's the Snowdrift Inn, Winter's Cradle Tavern, Big Fat Knucklehead, a lakeside tavern run by Flug the Blind, who lost an eye to a fishhook, Temple of Tempus, Boam's Emporium, Market Square, and visiting Dignitary's house. Those are different things in the game Icewind Dale. East Haven's a good time. Alright, next stop is Denivel. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not the best with names sometimes. And this is the geography. Denivel is located on the northwestern bank of Loch Denonshire, not far south of Kargunik. It is situated in a half-circle around Knucklehead Harbor, with the Gar Castle overlooking the harbor from the cliffs of Deniv in the east. The 2 towns of Denivel and Kargunik had an agreement to share fishing rights, but nevertheless squabbled over fishing territory. The Deniv family, this is the history portion. The Deniv family, displaced from their home in Gjormir, originally built the castle in 1050 DR, hoping to claim all of Icewind Dale for themselves. They abandoned it 8 years later in 1058 DR due to an orc siege that eliminated the town's population, either by death or by forcing them to flee. The Denevs starved 3 weeks inside their home and were too weak to fight back when the orcs got inside. A decade later, the castle was retaken from the orcs by the ancestors of the current townsfolk. By the year of the worm, 1356 DR, young Jensen Brent had become the councilman of the town. As spokesman, he lived in the car and greedily defended fishing rights against Kargunik. As of the year of the Iron Dwarf's vengeance, 1485 DR, Denivel was largely the same. Though the town's feud with Kargunik had only just died down thanks to an alliance between the speakers, enmities between the 2 peoples remained. Their agreement existed only to create a unified front against the fishing fleet of East Haven. There's a couple features listed here. The Eastway, a tradeway that leads west from the city. Knucklehead Harbor. This small anchorage served the town's fleet of ships. There's also a few structures mentioned. The car, the only freestanding castle in 10 towns. Culvers, the residence of the avid collector of curios. The uphill climb, an upscale tavern in the northeastern part of town that serves brews from good mead and food from Branshander. A ruined watchtower at the southern edge of town near the harbor, and 3 warehouses at the harbor's southwestern edge. Alright, next up is Kargunik. Geography. Kargunik is located on the northern shore of Loch Denivel, not far from Denivel, behind the shadow of the imposing Kelvins. A lot of tongue twisters. Imposing Kelvin's Cairn. The fishing waters of the lake were shared between the 2 towns, but fishermen nevertheless often squabble over territory. The settlement is entirely isolated save for a trail to Denivel and a ferry that traverses the lake to East Haven. And the history is Kargunik originated as a mere camp founded by a group of mountain climbing travelers from the Moonsea region of northern Faerun. Sometime later, the castle of Kargunik was constructed, though it was destroyed shortly thereafter by a horde of orcs. Diorm Luger was the councilman of the town until he was killed over a fish in the year of the worm, 1956 DR. His second in command, Skiermont, became the new councilman after the incident. Skiermont was known for his heavy-handed approach to rulership, and he held a particular grudge against Denivel. After the war with Arkar-Kessel and the Battle of Icewind Dale, Kargunik was given to the barbarians, although the barbarians later left town for the open tundra. During the everlasting rime, the folks of Kargunik made offerings of food to Yorl, the Frost Maiden. In the year of the Warrior Princess, 1489 DR, the town suffered a number of thefts perpetrated by Durgars led by Nilodar Sunblight. There's a couple businesses there. There is Frozen Far Expeditions. There's Hook, Line, and Sinker, a popular tavern that features dwarven ale. And there is Northern Light, the town's only public inn. There's a landmark of Market Square and Ruined Car, which is a castle located on a small hill above the town overlooking the harbor. Next up is Lonelywood. Here's the geography. This northernmost town is surrounded by the Lonelywood forest, with Mar Doldan on the west side and the Branshander Trail on the east. By 1351 DR, Lonelywood consists of mere several dozens of low wooden cabins and inhabited for people who wanted to disappear from other parts of the world, a place where the rogues of rogues hide out. The Lonelywood forest is rich with fir trees, allowing Lonelywood to be the main producer of lumber in Icewind Dale. The trees from Lonelywood are used to build all structures across the 10 towns. The timber gets carted from Lonelywood to Dermalen or Dargos, and occasionally to Branshander. The town maintains an insignificant fishing fleet, easily overshadowed by all 9 of other neighboring towns. Lonelywood's spirit of community is strong. A successful hunter is bound to share their catch beyond 1 full meal a day, equally among the inhabitants of the town. here's the history. There might be a spoiler or two in here, so bear that in mind. Before Jordan journeyed to Icewind Dale, Regis was the leader of the town. But in 1351 DR, after Wulfgar's people raided 10 towns, Regis retired as council spokesman, although the city continued to use him to market the town. Even after his move to Mithril Hall, he maintained a home there for some time. Following the barbarian attack on the 10 towns, Lonelywood's population increased dramatically, unlike its neighbors. The town welcomed the influx of inhabitants and even promoted itself as a home of the halfling hero. The rise to prominence managed to shake the town's reputation of being a roguish home. Muldoon became the next town spokesman in 1351 DR. He was originally from Waterdeep, but came to Lonelywood with his father when his father was kicked out of Waterdeep, although he later returned. Muldoon became a successful merchant and council spokesman. However, sometime before 1369 DR, Regis returned to the Speaker's seat following his predecessor's demise inside a Yeti. The folk of Lonelywood asked the halfling hero to lead the city once more, with the blessing of Bruno Battlehammer. During Regis' return to the Speaker's seat, he operated out of his humble store, the Boneworks. He was visited by a group of adventurers who were tasked with uncovering the location of the long-lost accursed tower that disappeared off the coast of Mar Doladan circa 1269 DR. Subsequently, with the halfling's help, the adventurers discovered the tower of Damien Mornorius stood across from Lonelywood on the western side of the lake. Regis returned to Lonelywood in 1483 DR and once again purchased a house there, spending time fishing in Mar Doladan. In the forest not far from his house, Canterbury built a small garden shrine to Maliki. There's a couple notable locations here. The Boneworks, which is a humble shop owned by the halfling hero that deals in masterful crafted scrimshaw. The Golden Lodge, a small but lush temple dedicated to Wukeen, with Quinn Silverfinger maintaining it. The Happy Scrimshander, a small shop facing the harbor and providing all materials including ivory for scrimshaw carvers. The Lucky Liar, the tavern favored by the hard-working locals. The tavern keeper is Dayane Extol. Pavel's Used Goods, who is a general store in Fens. Ramshackle, the inn that faces the docks. Its structure was torn down and rebuilt bigger in 1351 DR. A retired sawyer called de Groats ran the establishment in 1485 DR. And there's the Whistling Gallows, a large inn near the center of town, run by Karen Nay, or not. Next up is Bremen, something like that. Geography. Bremen was located on the southwestern shore of Mar Doladan, where the Sharingarn River meets the lake. Bremen's position makes it susceptible to flooding, although Brementes knew the signs and lives were rarely lost because of it. History. Bremen was originally founded by a group of dwarven prospectors. The town was nearly destroyed just prior to the year of the Griffin, 1312 DR, and the invasion of Icewind Dale by the Legion of the Chimera. Yet, that same year, the adventurer Canterbury set up a home base in Bremen while waiting for her appointed rendezvous with her friends. In the year of the Worm, 1356 DR, Bremen and Kargunik were given to the barbarians of Icewind Dale after the war with Arkar Gessel. Ravjak became the spokesperson for Bremen. The spokesman of the town around the year of the tankard in 1370 DR was Gil Hargergen, who, like other Brementiads, had a hobby of searching for gold and treasure on the floodplains along the banks of the river. During the years of the everlasting rime, Bremen offered a sacrifice of warmth to Ural. Residents of the town forwent any fires one day each month. They have a couple of shops. It looks like the Irwin's Trinkets, a small shop that sells magical trinkets uncovered by treasure seekers, and the Five Tavern Center, a cluster of 5 taverns arranged on a circular gravel square. The proximity of the taverns leads to outdoor bar fights nearly every night. There's Buried Treasures, a welcoming inn that caters to many treasure seekers that pass through town. The Knuckleheader, a tavern run by Darby Schneid, in as of the year of the Tasked Weasel, 1483 DR. Canterbury had an arrangement in which she would perform minor magical tasks in exchange for food and board when needed. Stones, a rowdy bar where travelers could often be found fighting local Bremites. Sheringan Street, these are landmarks. So Sheringan Street, a street lining the harbor and separating the town from the floodplains along the banks of the river. Statue of Rolf Bremen, presumably the founder of Bremen. Spokesman House and Town Hall. And Wet Rock, a rocky islet in the center of the Sheringan River, atop which sat the shack of the reclusive witch Thurdian. There's also a Rumors and Legends. It says here, circa the year of the warrior princess, 1489 DR. Rumors circulated in Bremen about a lake monster that appeared in Mar Doladon that regularly attacked local fishing boats. This monster was in fact a plesiosaurus that had peacefully dwelled within the lake's waters, but was recently awakened by an Aurelian druid called Ravison. Let's move on to Dermalen. Dermalen was the second northernmost settlement of 10 towns and the third largest in the region. It is thought to be the gem of Icewind Dale, a charming little village surrounded by striking natural beauty. As delightful as it is, the town maintains a bitter fishing rivalry with the walled settlement of Dargos. It is home to a great many craftspeople and shipwrights whose work is placed on display with the fleet of fishing vessels that were owned by the town. Dermalen is located on the eastern shore of Mar Dolden, due north of Branshander. Here's the government. The long-standing councilman of the mid-14th century DR was Argwal, owner of the Dormalian gem mine. He was injured and survived the orc invasion sent by Arkar Kessel in the year of the worm, 1356 DR, and later died in the Battle of Branshander. Speaker Shalene Mastew served as the head of Dermalen during the late 15th century. She was a charming and shrewd woman who greatly admired her fellow council member, Duvissa Shane. Dermalen's main rival was Dargos, and their feuds for fishing rights on Moyar Dolden from time to time ended in bloodshed. Trade. Historically, the area is rich in Dormalen mining. A nearby cave provided the source of these valuable gems. History. The city of Dermalen was taken over several times by barbarian forces. The infamous barbarian Havstig conquered it twice, but failed a third during his last attempt in the year of the crown 1351 DR. Havstig tried to conquer all of the 10 towns in one massive attack, The attack by the tribe of the Bear during the Battle of Icewind Dale forced more than half of the townsfolk to take shelter in Branshander, but the damage was quickly repaired. In the time of war, the city can call up around 100 to 500 human militia who fought with dwarven weapons and wore lightweight armor. So this is now notable locations. One of the quietest and most beautiful of the settlements in Icewind Dale, Dermalen has a sprawling tree plantings around the widely scattered houses, which are placed behind rubble walls to protect the structures against the wind. That's interesting. Inns and taverns. The Blue Clam, the fisherman's favorite tavern, is decorated with scrimshaw and trophies. The East Side, this comfortable and spacious inn, is among the best accommodations in all of Icewind Dale. Landmarks. The Gem Mine, which is regularly closed and reopened depending on the activity of monsters coming up from the Underdark. Market Square, located along the harbor, and Town Hall, located a block from the Market Square. So that's Dermalen. Now we head to Dargos. So this is geography for Dargos. The city sits on the southernmost shore of the Mar Doldun, along a series of high cliff walls that shelter its port from the savage winter winds. The harbor's deep water allow the construction of vessels which were large for the area, and the sheltering cliffs permit construction to continue through much of the year. As a result, the town is amongst the top towns of the region for dominance of the knucklehead trout industry. The city itself and much of the harbor is surrounded by a city wall. Dargos is a sprawling town with uncluttered streets. Buildings have breathing space separated by wide avenues. The inhabitants are used to the privacy of these spacious accommodations. These wide streets give off the feeling of solitude for those not used to the town's life. This, however, changed by the 15th century. Dargos became abuzz with commerce and industry. Unlike Branshander, Dargos nights were quiet as the fishers went to bed early, ready for the early rise. The 15th century also brought city's expansion. The newer inhabitants constructed shacks beyond the city's wooden walls. The merchant caravan travel time between Luskin and Dargos was approximately 21 days via the Den Trail. It has a rather long history, and a lot of it has to do with the setting of the Icewind Dale module for Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm not really going to dig too much into that because I haven't even played it myself yet, but I'm looking forward to doing so. So we'll skip that for now, and we'll go to trade. Like most of the 10 towns, Dargos specializes in trading knucklehead trout. Its 100-boat fleet takes in a larger catch than the other 3 towns on Mir Doldun combined. Some of the town's biggest fishing vessels are 2-masted schooners. Dargos' fleet is twice the size of Dermalen's. Built on the same lake, Dargos and Dermalen were fishing competitors, oftentimes bitter, with fishers exchanging rude remarks and nasty glares when passing each other in the water. Notable locations. The city's Ash Quarter is a neighborhood that was blackened and destroyed by one of Argar Gessel's attacks using Kranchinabon, which, for those of you who aren't aware, is also known as the Crystal Shard. Inns and taverns. The Luskin Arms, the oldest inn in Dargos that dated back to the days when Branshander was nothing but a lone cabin. The innkeeper is a man named Owen. Salty Dog Tavern. The tavern is located in the cove at the base of the cliffs. That's pretty cool. 3 flags sailing, one of the taverns by the docks that serves fishermen. The Trip and Shuffle, a rough tavern located near the gate and run by Russell, a former Purple Dragon Knight fleeing from a death sentence in Gormir. Weeping Widow Inn, no description. Windgate, no description. And Wolf's Belt Inn, a cozy inn and tavern ran by Callous Winters. There's a couple of shops that they note as well. Galloway Trade Depot, a general store located in the main town at the top of the cliffs. Grandiel's Fine Dwarven Craft, the dwarven smithy ran by Granite Fist, one of the original inhabitants of Mithril Hall before its fall and reclamation. Market Square, the square located in the center of town. And Trigelio, the general store named after a local fisher, Shanty. Good stuff. Alright, we are on our final town. And this town is called Branshander. So let's go ahead and dive right in. This is the geography. The city is the only one of the 10 towns not located on the shores of either Mere Dolden, Redwaters, or Lac Denishire. Instead, it is located on top of a hill south of Kelvin's Cairn. The Eastway connects the city to the town of East Haven in the east. An unnamed trail connects the city's north gate to the village of Dargos, and the Caravan Trail left the city to the southwest towards the spine of the world, where it was called the Den Trail. Description: the circular walled town itself is placed upon a hill with snowy plains stretching in all directions. There are 3 gates, north, south, and east. City Hall sits just outside the wall to the northeast of the city. Trade. Branshander is considered the heart and mercantile hub of the 10 towns. Folks from all around the surrounding settlements gather in the 10th town to sell their goods, primarily consisting of scrimshaw made from the bones of knucklehead trout. Merchants from the lands south of the wall bring in goods that cannot be found in the frozen bar, such as spices, fruits, wines, and hardwood lumber from as far away as the Heartlands. Defenses. Because of its defensive location, residents of the cities east of Branshander often take refuge within the city walls during wartime. The town's security is overseen by its sheriff and their deputy. They maintain a small town guard of 20 militiamen and could rally a force of about 400 in dire times of need. Additionally, the sheriff is granted powers to hire on adventurers to complete any tasks that ensure the safety of Branshander's people and secure its trade interests. There's a ton of history, a lot of it to do with the module for D&D, so we'll skip that for now. Notable locations: inns and taverns, Bloodrill's Snughaven, Fallfurl's Inn, an old and drafty boarding house, Gelgestag's Rest, the long-standing inn that lacked a bit in the way of luxury and convenience, Hooked Knucklehead, the inn preferred by craftsmen and business people alike, Kelvin's Comfort, a tavern that was popular among caravanners, Northlook, the inn that catered to sell swords and adventurers. Landmarks: the armory located at the edge of the market square, the council hall, the meeting place of the 10 town spokesmen, Mark Market Square, a bustling marketplace located in the center of town featuring knucklehead trout, scrimshaw, vegetables, reindeer meat, and handicrafts, and of course the town hall. Then you have shops. You have Black Iron Blades, a small shop and smithy north of the town square that makes the cheapest weapons in the 10 towns. Dario's Emporium, the largest trade house in the city, famous for its fine merchandise that includes dwarven weapons from Gilvin's Carn and more. There's a couple of temples and a couple residences, and that seems to be about it. So, that is the 10 towns, or just 10 towns, however you want to say it, but that is what is in Icewind Dale, just north of the spine of the world, in Faerun, which is a continent in the Forgotten Realms world. So I hope you enjoyed learning about 10 towns. Hopefully, you will definitely take some time to adventure there yourselves, whether it be in the video game 10 Town or Icewind Dale, or reading through Drist books or other books that may venture that far up north. If you like this kind of thing, learning about whether it's fantasy places or even real places, please let me know. If you want something read about, I could definitely take a look into it for you and read about it and things of that nature. So thank you again for all your kindness and support. I really appreciate it. And until next time, my friends, I hope you have yourself a great morning, or afternoon, or evening, and most importantly, I hope you sleep well. Good night, everyone. Think about the knucklehead trout. Think about the 10 towns. Think about the plesiosaurus in that lake attacking fishermen.